Hello. So, what's your name and what's your last album?
What's going on? My name is Torae, and my last album is called Entitled.
And you funded that album on Kickstarter, correct?
Yeah, I did a portion of it. I mean, the Kickstarter raised a little over 10,000. Anybody who knows how to really make an album knows it takes a lot more than 10,000 to do it. But Kickstarter was a cool way to raise some funds towards it for sure.
Yeah, and also how did the Kickstarter perform to like traditional pre-orders? 'Cause I always wonder like how pre-orders work in like on iTunes and stuff like that.
I mean, the Kickstarter, it was so many different rewards that people had selected, and then everybody who backed the Kickstarter automatically pre-ordered the album because that was part of every reward is to get, a digital download of the album. So I guess it was a little different from like a traditional pre-order that you would do on for CDs on the site or that you would do on iTunes. But I mean, if you just go by based off of the backers, we had 200 plus. So you say we had 200 plus pre-orders on the album as well.
Okay. Did the Kickstarter end up having like a big creative impact on the product? Like, did you go to the fans and like try and see what they wanted to see out of the album, or?
No, it was always already kind of in motion. The Kickstarter for me, it was like, how do I get, for one, how do I let the people know that there's a project, being created? How do I get them involved? And, you know, um, also, how do I make sure that they understand that they are a part of the process? People always tell me, yo, I played your song at my wedding, they played your song at my graduation, or, people tattoo lyrics or pictures or whatever, right? So obviously the music is impacting people's lives as a part of their lives. So I just wanted everybody who supported it and backed it to know that they were a part of the album as well. And that's why one of the cool rewards was actually getting shouted out on the album if you selected that reward. So on the outro, I named like three or four. What is wrong with you? I named like three or four of the actual backers who selected that reward. So creatively, I kept it, doing what I do, but I wanted the people to be a part of the process along the way.
Do you think that there's like a lot of future for hip hop albums made on
Come here,
Kickstarter?
come say hi to the people. My hair isn't done. That's all right. My hair isn't done either. That's why I got the hat on. There you go. All right, beat it.
Hi.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that because traditionally the way people go about putting out albums and the way people go about buying albums is changing. It's a different ball game. Everything is gone digital, and 9 times out of 10, if you want to hear some music, you don't have to necessarily go out and buy it.
Hmm.
But if you do want to support some of your favorite artists, then I think Kickstarter or crowdfunding is a dope way to get involved with that. I saw De La Soul did
Yeah.
one, and I thought that was super dope. And TLC did one, and I thought that was super cool. And people had presented it to me a few times, like, "Why don't you do a Kickstarter for your new album?" And I was like for what? Like, I didn't really understand all of the mechanics behind it. So once I kind of just sat down and did the research, I was like, okay, it's a cool way to engage the audience, get them excited about it, get them talking about it, and again, kind of tear off where my audience was. There was the
Hmm.
$10 person who was like, yo, when the album comes out, send me my link and I'm good. And
Yeah.
then there was the $50 person, and then there was the $500 person. So it gave me more input as to who my audience was and who was willing to kind of do what, to
Hmm.
kind of level off where they are in this level of support.
I thought it was good too. Like, I'm assuming you're based out of New York, and because the New
Yeah,
York
Brooklyn.
listening party was there, and that has like such a, I imagine, a big like hip hop purchasing audience is in New York, so you're able to like leverage that into like a
Right,
listening party that made sense and like a way to
right.
have fans come to it. Which I bet if you did that normally, it'd be a bit of a hassle trying to like vet people and
Yeah, the listening. So we did a couple of different things. We did like a private industry one, with some of the producers and industry people, press people, and then I actually invited some of the Kickstarter backers to that. And then I did a really cool one where I actually went to one of the backers' house. I went to my
yeah.
man Hank. I went to his house out in Long Island, and it was dope. I played him the album early, and it was just me, him, and his wife, his brothers, and his friends, and we just chilled out and ate pizza and had a few drinks and just listened to the album and talk hip hop and talk life and that was super cool for me just to meet somebody that I normally probably wouldn't have met, normally wouldn't have been at their place, but just to understand that his level of support for me in turn turned into me wanting to support him and the things that he was doing too. So it was dope, just an opportunity to meet somebody who's really a supporter, and he knew more of my songs than I did. He was quoting shit. And I was like, yo, what song is that from? Like, I don't even remember. Like, I got 8 projects at this point. I've been doing it 10 years. So, but he said he's a postal worker, a mailman. And so he said he just put his headphones on and he take his mail and he just go on his route and all he do is listen to music all day. So he got time to really listen and dissect everything.
Segueing from that, when did Morgan Freeman get his driver's license?
A really long time ago.
Like, did you have a time in mind when you thought of that?
I felt like it was like a cool little line in a double entendre because, for one, obviously Morgan Freeman is old as hell, right? So you would assume he got his driver's license.
And he's been old. Like, that song's not new either.
Right.
And he was old then, so.
He's older, exactly. And then also because he did the movie Driving Mrs. Daisy, where, it was based in old times. Like, he was a black chauffeur, a black driver for this white woman. So obviously that was old times. And being that he was driving, he had to have his license. So it was just like me kind of playing with 2 different ideas. You know what I'm saying?
That's even better than I initially thought. I mean, the Genius page for that song isn't filled out. So
it's not all the way annotated, right?
Speaking of media, like on your show, how is it like hearing other rappers rap in like a kind of press role? Like, are you inspired by like the guests you have on your show and hearing them rap and
Sometimes. So, obviously I put out a certain sound and I'm cut from a certain cloth and brand of hip hop. Unfortunately that does not pay all of the bills in my life. And so as I was just kind of venturing off into doing other things and figuring out ways to, still be able to make the music I love and do what I love to do, but also to sustain my living, pay for this nice condo in the background, and that little human being that you just saw, that's my daughter. And I have a son as well. So it's just like, I have a real life, and it costs a lot to live in this city in New York. And so radio was just a dope kind of like platform to be a part of, and I feel like it's like a natural progression. As an MC, I talk to people. Normally, it's about 3.5 minutes, and it's over a really dope beat.
Yeah.
But I can kind of extend that into a whole full conversation, and that's really what the radio is for me. It's just an extension of me being an MC on the mic, is MCing on the radio. As far as the guests, it's a company, it's a corporation, and it's give and take. I don't ever do anything that I'm totally against, but I do. Keep my mind open to different artists or people that I might not have normally have listened to. I keep my mind open because as much as I want to get like a Boss on the show and a J. Cole and guys like that, that I rock with, I also got to make room for some of the newer guys, like having a dope conversation with Wiz Khalifa, who's a really good guy. And I mention him just because anytime I post Wiz or, I'm out with Wiz or whatever, my core audience always has so much negative shit to say. And I'm like, yo, Wiz, he's a really dope person. You know what I'm saying? Whether you like the music or not is one thing. But he's a dope dude. He's a dope person. And at the end of the day, he's putting out records and he's doing what he does and he supports his family. And I got to have nothing but respect for that. So, it gives me an opportunity to meet new people, and it gives me a chance to open up my mind and not be so closed-minded. That's one thing I really dislike about some of the hip-hop purists, is that they are a little closed-minded.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know you had the show till I watched like a Little Dicky interview.
Okay.
I
like
saw
the
that.
Little Dicky, right? Yeah, Dicky is cool. So what it does is it works in so many different ways, right? Because obviously if Little Dicky has a huge audience and following, so Dicky's audience will follow him to whatever he's doing. So if he's on my show, that opens them up to A, my show, and B, that might turn them on to another interview with somebody else, or it might turn them on to a Torae song or something like that. So it all works together. Like, it's the synergy of the way I kind of designed it. But shout out to Little Dicky. He's dope too.
Yeah, it's another Kickstarter, Kickstarter artist.
He killed it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, I like a lot of different types of hip hop, but it's just cool seeing like different, like now there's like subgenres of like almost joke rap.
Right.
Like he's doing joke. He took what like Lonely Island did and
Right,
took it
and
to a
you took it
level
all
now
the way.
where I don't even want to hear a Lonely Island song because they're not like getting guest features in like appropriate ways. Like you got Snoop Dogg and T-Pain and
Yeah, no, he
um,
killed it. He killed it. I was when I got onto Dickie and I saw, that he did his Kickstarter and how well it was funded, and then I started listening to the music. I was like, yo, I gotta showcase this. Like, this
yeah,
is dope. It's not straight from the projects, from the street, selling crack. It's not that brand of hip hop, but every brand of hip hop is different, and everything shouldn't be the same. So,
yeah,
as much as I can appreciate, what Nas does and what somebody from the West Coast, Kendrick does. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? I can appreciate what a Dickie does as well. They're
Yeah,
gonna
especially because
slaughter me.
like being genuine is so
Exactly.
important to the hip hop fan.
It's still keeping it real. Whatever your real is, I'd rather a little Dickie who gives me his reality than somebody lie about, being the biggest drug dealer in the world,
Yeah,
knowing that they were a corrections officer.
yeah, and I think that genuine nature is probably what allowed him to get the Fetty Wap features and the T-Pain features. Like it's kind of nuts the people that he was able to work with on that album. Speaking of media and I guess freshmen in a way with Lil Dicky, like how important do you think the like freshman 10 and the BET ciphers are to like new MCs breaking in?
It's really important. I think a lot of guys, that's like that real stamp, like that real validation that, that they are making some headway and that people are paying attention. And it puts them in front of a large audience, whereas it's so hard to break an artist these days. And it's so hard to really get people to pay attention because everybody's so kind of caught up in their life. It's certain things that people stop and they look at. And the freshman cover is definitely one of those things. And I think the BT Cypher, most people tune in just for the Cypher. So.
Yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, BET
Right.
is not cheap to get in Canada. So
Right.
the
So
ciphers
most
are pretty
people
much...
are checking for that Cypher. So, when you look and you hear somebody that you might not have been up on, right before they start spitting and they jump on and they kill it, you automatically go to the Twitter or you go to YouTube and you start searching shit. And, it's dope. It's a great platform for new artists to kind of break into, other people's eyes and ears.
You haven't done the BET cipher, have you?
I haven't. I was actually thinking about kind of pushing for it this year. They never called me. And so I always felt the way about it, like how, but
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta be proactive. So I might actually get on my proactive.
Well, it's usually themed. So like,
Yeah. I
maybe
gotta
if you got like, and if Angie had a 16, maybe you could do like a radio, like try and get as many radio personalities together.
No, wait. It would be me, right? It would be
Yeah.
Heather B, because she's a radio personality.
Yeah.
It would be Ludacris, right? Get Luda in there.
Oh, he had one of the better BET ciphers. The one with him, Busta, 2 Chainz, and that other guy. Sorry about the other guy, but he just didn't have the career that the other 3 had.
We could do a radio theme for
Yeah.
sure. I'm not going to give away what I think my theme should be, though. I'm not going to give it away yet.
Do you have something like prepared?
Rhyme wise, no.
Okay.
It would be like, once I knew that it was going to happen, then I would. I mean, if they called me tomorrow and was like, show up tomorrow, of course I would have a verse. But actually having something really written and catered to that audience, I don't.
Yeah, because that would be So
That's a big platform. So when you do it, like you got to do it all the way right,
Yeah,
And I know some guys, they get the last minute call, and it's kind of unfair to them because they just got to use a random verse. But
yeah, and I think it's I think people take it very seriously, and I think that's why it's maintained its like relevancy and excitement because it's just like it's a lot of the rappers like the best spitting they're gonna do is that cipher.
exactly.
And you also have no idea. Like I wasn't expecting like the Redman and Eric Sermon one.
That was dope.
Like that was out of nowhere.
Keith Murray was going crazy.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of features, like how competitive do you get with features?
Not so competitive, honestly, and that might be probably to my disadvantage. Like when I do a record with somebody, I'm trying to make a dope record. I'm not necessarily trying to like chop their head off or embarrass or show anybody up.
Mm-hmm.
There's always friendly competition. Like, I don't put nobody trash on records with me, and I don't do records with anybody that's trash. So it's always like, make sure you do your thing, make sure you show up.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm never like just trying to like put you on a record and kill you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's never my thing. Maybe I should sometimes.
Is there a lot of like back and forth? Like, do you hear his and then you got to go back? Does that happen a lot with you, or are you pretty?
In a perfect world, I either like to just send the beat, or we get in the studio together and we work on the feature. That's a perfect world because now we both got this blank canvas, and whatever you do and whatever I do, has no bearing on each other because we both kind of come from our own point of view. Sometimes you have to send the song already done with your verse on it, and then just let somebody fill in the blanks, which kind of gives them, the upper hand, if you will, and because they already know where you're coming from, so they know where they need to go and take it. So it happens sometimes. Like I said, I would much rather just do a record with somebody in the studio or just send them the beat. But there was a few times on the album actually I had to send the whole joint in the shows.
Yeah, with Clap Shit Up, which is I'm a big Fonte fan. So was that like you just sent it off or were you guys able to get together and do that together?
No, so Fonte and I, I had worked with Fonte a few times. He was on a mixtape of mine. I was on the last Little Brother album, and that's my dude. When we started working on The Breaks, the movie for VH1, we started kicking it and chopping it up and seeing each other more often. And I had somebody else actually that I was doing Clap Shit Up with, honestly. And
can you say who it is?
It was Royce.
Ooh.
It was Royce, and Royce was working and he got busy and shit. And I was always thinking like maybe it should be us three anyway. But when it didn't pan out with Royce, I was like, yo, Tay, I got this record on my album. I think you would be dope on it. And so when I sent it to him, I just sent him everything because I set the song off.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And he came in and killed shit.
Yeah. I mean, your verse, like, listen to that song again. As much as a Fonte fan as I am, I think I like your verse more.
I mean, they both dope. I said, he came in. I wouldn't have put him on the record if I didn't know he was going to come in and smash it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a good balance. Like, you guys both did very well.
I'm not trying to, like I said, man, I'm not trying to one-up anybody or do a record with somebody that I feel like I'm going to kill. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, because what's the fun in that? I want people to be divided. I want somebody to say, yo, Fonte killed you. And I want somebody to turn around and say, nah, Torae shit was ill. Like, that's what makes a dope song. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it was just one-sided. Right. If it was just one-sided, people wouldn't care as much. It wouldn't be as passionate. So, shout out to Fonte. I knew he was going to catch a body. Like, even though people see him doing Foreign Exchange and, you know what I'm saying, like singing and dancing on stage, like, don't ever get it confused. Like, he's not one of the best MCs ever.
Yeah, I mean, he's easily in my top 5. It varies depending on mood, obviously.
Right.
But speaking of people you work with well together, why do you think you and Sky Zoo are such a good fit together?
It's just, you can't really pinpoint synergy. You can't really put a finger on, compatibility and chemistry. You just have it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I walk in the room, I sat down with a million MCs before I met Sky Zoo and a million after, but he and I just have that. We just got that thing. We both Brooklyn. I'm a couple years older than him, but, we grew up in the same time and, we got a lot of the same likes and just, he got a Bed-Stuy feel to it. I got a Coney Island feel to it. But, I think it meshes together well. And when people hear us on records together, they want to hear us on more records together.
Yeah. It was great that you were able to do an album. Because, like, I heard of both of you originally on Click. Just because you're downloading everything with DJ Premier at the time. So
Of course.
And so it's cool to see that you guys kept working together and were able to do an album. And
right. Because people have been asking since then, and at that point, neither one of us were really established as solo artists, and it's like I'm not trying to jump in a group right now. I'm trying to do me. You know what I'm saying? But we kept working together, and we knew people wanted it, and fortunately enough, when we were able to kind of sit down and had time to do it together, people still cared, and it was a very dope album from 2014.
And I think it's good that you guys like kind of kept solo identities and never really formed much of a group early on, because I think it let both of you do your own things, work with different producers and stuff like that, and kind of come together. So I'm a video game developer, which I don't know if you know that, and in video games, we have lots of sales, lots of discounts, and a lot of the money is made during those sales and discounts. Like, you might make more money putting your thing 75% off a year later than you do at launch.
Oh, wow.
And and it's about visibility, because it's like you get on the front of the stores and different platforms and stuff like that. And I always wondered, like, why is there not a lot of, like, do you think music discounts would help sales? Because I'm always like, I'd buy a whole catalog of, like, I'd buy a discography for $20 of any person I know just to kind of fill that collection. But I noticed there's not really a lot of incentives to pre-order and not a lot of like sales or discounts in the music industry, and I was wondering if you thought that would be beneficial.
I'm pretty sure the mainstream and major label level that they would be against it because they're trying to pick up every dollar they're trying to get. For independent artists, that's actually something interesting to think about. Maybe putting your whole catalog together with some extras, some bonuses, and selling at a discounted rate. I'm sure you get a lot of people who would go out there and buy it and support it. That's a pretty dope idea. I do buy a lot of music. Like recently, when I buy stuff on my phone, I'll go buy like an album, from 4 or 5 years ago, and sometimes they're a little cheaper, $7.99, $6.99, So I find myself picking up stuff that I already have on CD or that I might have even on cassette, but just buying it because I want it digitally in my phone.
Yeah, definitely with the like whole complete an album thing where you buy the single like up front and then being able, I think they've done a good job of like filling out that music collection.
Sure.
Have you ever done music for video games?
I've never done music specifically for video games, but I've had my music in video games.
Would you ever be open to the idea of doing music for video games?
Of course. I think that so much of the revenue and ways that you can make revenue as an artist go way past going to the studio and writing a record and selling it. They're trying to sell it to somebody. I just licensed something. I can't even say to who because it's not out there yet. But I just licensed a record, this past week. Yesterday, a soundtrack came out with a song of mine on it from a new movie that's about to drop. So, it's so many different ways. As long as you have ownership, and that's a big deal for me, is like owning my music and my masters. As long as you have ownership, you can work out so many different deals and do things with music. Some people went from the artist space to being music directors for television programs or, scoring the Grammys and shit like that. Or you look at a DJ Premier who scored the movie The Breaks that I'm in with Fonte. So, it's a lot of different ways that you can make money and still stay true to making dope music as well. So if you know what I need to do to start working in video games, you just say the word.
Yeah, definitely will. If anybody needs a very, very good rapper.
Yeah, hit me. Me.
Do you play video games at all?
Not so much anymore. The last video game system I bought, well, not including what I bought for my kids, but I think I was like Super Nintendo or something. Like,
oh, okay, yeah.
Because I bought a computer early on. Like, I did have a computer early on. And back when I was, like late teens, early 20s or whatever, the computers had the better graphics than the video game systems, especially if you had like the graphics card or whatever. So when I started buying like my first NBA 2Ks and all of that, I was buying the computer version and playing them on my computer with the joystick as opposed to video game systems. So then I never got into PlayStations and, now they up to PlayStation 4 or some shit.
Yeah, I mean, PC is always like ahead of consoles graphically and then...
Right. I think right now this shit looks so real. My daughter be playing games. I be thinking she watching a movie on the thing. It looks so good. Or when my son is playing basketball, I'm like, yo, it's a game on? He's like, nah, yo, I'm playing.
Yeah. Speaking of basketball, what are the Knicks' biggest problems?
Everything.
If you could get a good coach or a good point guard, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think the talent is only as good as the man who leads them into battle. Because we've actually had some talented teams, even though we never had the Knicks definitely need a point guard. That's point blank period. You can't win in this league without a solid point guard. But you also need a good coach. You need somebody who understands the personnel that he's working with and understands how to use them. And I thought that Coach Woodson, had a pretty good grasp on how to use his guys until towards the end of his time with New York. But yeah, man, having a rookie coach in this city and with all the expectations and with Melo being such a high profile player, like none of that shit made sense. I get what Phil was trying to do. I didn't think it was a good look from the beginning, and it didn't work out. So now we got to see, man. It's a few good coaches out there. I think it kind of starts with Dolan, man. I'm not sure how much say so he still wants to have and what's happening with the organization, but it might be time for him to let those reins go and just let basketball people be basketball people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Phil only coaching home games sounds like a bad
Yeah,
idea.
that's stupid. Because you can't get, you can't get a good feel for what you're gonna be doing every night if you don't have your coach out there with you every night.
And
That
also,
doesn't.
people play up in the Garden. So, like, you're probably they probably have the hardest home schedule in the league because people just want to play there.
Everybody wants to come and bust our ass at home and then go to the 40-40 club.
Well, I hope the Knicks get Conley. I mean, I like Memphis, but if Conley,
No, I would take Conley in a heartbeat. Take
Yeah.
Conley in a heartbeat.
So one last somewhat silly question. My Wi-Fi router's name is like Wi-Fi for chocolate, and I was wondering if you've heard any like hip hop themed Wi-Fi names in your time.
That's a really good question. I can't necessarily say that I have. I've seen some crazy ones, and I used to screenshot them on my phone and just post them, like, riding around and shit in your phone. I'll keep my phone on Wi-Fi, and you would just see like random ones pop
Like
up.
I can hear you having sex or something like that, where it's directed to people.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I thought of some more hip hop themed ones. Built for Cuban Linksys.
That's nice.
Router.
Like
Pretty
that.
Fly for a Wi-Fi. I mean, that's an
Pretty Fly
Offspring
for
song, but
Good.
pretty
It's
good. And then Wi-Fi F baby, please say the baby.
Please say the baby. That's good.
Yeah.
Those are all good. When we're on the road and we're in various hotels and the Wi-Fi is shoddy, we just call it Li-Fi.
Do you guys do the fake names like the basketball players? Or do you have-
Normally the promoters book us, so they'll just put it'll be under their name.
Okay.
I'm not famous enough to have to hide from anybody though.
Though you do have the problem of like it seems like it's your name.
Yeah, my name is my name.
Yeah.
Pusha T and who was that from The Wire? Marlo.
Yeah. So thanks for being on the question bus. Anything you want to plug? Social medias?
At Torae on Twitter, on Instagram, on mihente.com, all of that, man. Get at me. I'm just playing, not on mihente. But thank you for having me on the bus. Thank you for not throwing me under the bus. It was a good time. Thank you for not throwing my Knicks under the bus. And I appreciate the time. And again, thank you for supporting the Kickstarter and the music.
Yeah. And good luck. Hopefully see you in a
great
BET
video
cipher.
Yeah, for sure. Let me start working on my verse right now.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
All right, man. Peace.